Commission, and it's always a pleasure to come and visit with you as you have these meetings throughout the year. I love this county. This county is a phenomenal place to be, to live, especially this time. There's a lot going on in Utah County. It's a pleasure to have been able to serve you, and I would hope in the future that that will continue. My wife is here, right there. My wife's here. My son, one of my sons is with us. We have 7 children. We live in Pleasant Grove, and we've been here, well, I've been here for about 30 years. Came down here to go to BYU. Found my wife, started some businesses, ran those. Worked for Senator Mike Lee for 3 years. And for the last 3 years and 4 months, I've worked for you here in Utah County, and it is a pleasure to be here. So thank you, and I hope you have some really good questions for me.
Good morning, I'm Mike Kennedy, I'm running for U.S. Senate. I'm a family doctor, I've been doing that for 20 years. I work in Linden now. I'm also an attorney, I graduated from BYU Law School. I love that legal and medical part. Medical's the good side, of course. Legal, you know what the other side is. In addition, I've had the pleasure of serving as a state legislator these prior 6 years. And in doing that, it's been a pleasure to work with Representative Malloy, Representative Daw, and also Commissioner Lee and others, and trying to move us forward in a positive direction. I have a brief statement to make, and then I'll move on to the others. I'd just say there's a lot of talk in Washington, a lot of people that want to talk about things, smooth politicians offering you promises that ultimately are not fulfilled. I'm the sort of plain-spoken person that believes when we say things, we need to do them. Washington, D.C. is a complicated place. There's a lot of serious problems in Washington, but I know Utah has the answers to those problems. Because in Utah, we understand that to solve problems, we need to work together, and the solutions come by working hard. We also understand that the way to help one another is not through a handout, but actually through a hand up. In addition, we understand, most importantly, that we are one nation under God, and that under that God-given banner of liberty, that we can move forward in a positive direction. I'm Mike Kennedy, I'm running for U.S. Senate because I want to make sure that your liberties are preserved in the United States Senate. Thank you for allowing me to be here this day.
My name is Chris Herrod. My wife is right back there, my beautiful wife. I'd like to tell you a little bit why I'm running again. I think most people, I've been to this group, this is one of my favorite groups. I've been here dozens of times, and so I think most of this group knows who I am and kind of what I stand for. But I also want to talk about the caucus convention system. You know, one of the things about me, I do what I say I'm going to do. I actually testified, even though I wasn't in the legislature, I went up and testified against SB 54. Because I think it makes sense that Republicans who believe in a Republican form of government believe that we should use a Republican form to choose our leaders. It's this back and forth through conversations that you can talk to me, see if I really believe the statements that are on my literature. As you look what's going on in the world, I've spent 5.5 years of my life overseas. I was teaching in the former Soviet Union at 2 different universities when the Soviet Union was collapsing. And one of the things that our children do not understand, they do not understand that socialism does not work. It's been proven over and over and over. And in fact, most people forget that the ideology that killed most people last century was socialism. Now, a Nazi, most people, many of our youth are calling conservatives Nazis or things like that, not realizing that Nazi comes from National Socialists. That's where it comes from. I have friends that lost both their parents to Stalin's gulags, less than a decade after all the guns were taken away. I have a friend from Ethiopia that when the communists took over, they took away all the guns, and then within 5 years, he was having to shout, "Red Terror, Red Terror, Red Terror," as teenagers were being mowed down. And so there's certain principles that we cannot back away from. And for me, that's what the Constitution is. I believe wholeheartedly my job primarily, or one of the top 3 jobs that I have if you send me back to Washington, is to get us back to the Constitution. If it's not in Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution, Congress shouldn't be doing it. And we need to be keeping that balance of power. We need to pull rulemaking authority from the executive branch. But I don't want to take more time. I'm sure we'll have questions. But my name is Chris Herrod, and I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
A couple more blips in that microphone. I made it to see my doctor. Luckily, he's right here. I'm really conflicted about whether or not to vote for Mike because I like him where he's at, but I also know he can do a fabulous job up there. I've been here for a while, and I love this group. I wanted you to look at this flyer here. This is my little literature piece, and the reason I bring this to you is because well, first my daughter laid it out. She's really good. And secondly, I want you to look at, if you look at the frame there, the border, you can't read it from there, but what I have on the border is this, because to me this is what should frame anybody's candidacy. It says this: we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just power from the consent of the government. Whatever else we do, that's where it needs to start. That's where it needs to live in. And so whatever I do, I want that to sit inside the framework, that framework. And on the back, I have another framework, and it has, and I won't read them all, but freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom to assemble, freedom to openly criticize the government, except for Mike Kennedy. He does really good work. And building. Anyway, freedom to keep and bear arms. It goes on from there. But the fact is, I've been around long enough that I hope that you can look at my record and feel that I have, to the best of my ability, tried to keep myself within those bounds and tried to be that kind of a legislator. And not one that just sits there and does nothing but talk about that. The fact is, as legislators, we need to be actively engaged. We need to be solving the hard problems. We need to be working at what we can do to keep our state on the right course. And that's never an easy thing to do because there are a lot of forces out there pushing the other way. And so I hope that what you'll see in me is somebody who is principled, somebody who understands what the foundation of our country is, and also is one to work night and day and give everything he has to preserving that. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Jim Phelps, and I'm running to be your Utah County Sheriff. First, I want to acknowledge my wife, my lovely wife back there, trying to take a picture of me, so I got that. And I'm humbled to be here with these fine gentlemen. I've had the opportunity to sit and visit with each of them and had some great conversations, and I truly respect them. And our legislators, Corey Malloy, I've enjoyed chatting with him, and I appreciate all that he does for us up on the Hill. I'm running to be your Utah County Sheriff because I love this county. I'm a lifelong resident of this county. I've spent my career mainly working in Salt Lake County as a United States Marshal. I retired a couple of months ago after 25 years of service so that I could be more involved in our community. The day after I retired, I announced my candidacy. I want to make sure that the problems that I was addressing in Salt Lake County don't end up down here. I enjoyed Cammie and I raising our kids here. I'm very concerned that my grandkids won't be able to be raised in the same type of environment. I want to make sure that Utah County doesn't end up like Salt Lake County. I want my grandkids to be raised in the same type of environment that I was able to raise my kids, in the type of environment that I grew up in. And that I know the problems that are going on up there. I dealt with the situations with Rio Grande and saw the mistakes that were made. We don't need to repeat those same mistakes down here. I've served on the gang unit up there. We have gang problems. I have the expertise in narcotics investigations, and I know of the cartels that are operating here in Utah County. I'm very concerned about the sexual predators that are out there, and I have a great relationship with Internet Crimes Against Children's Task Force. And I'm still, even though I'm retired, actively working with the Secure Task Force, tackling human trafficking. We have human trafficking occurring in this county. I'm dealing with it in Salt Lake County on the task force, and those same indicators and businesses are now coming into Utah County. As your sheriff, I vow to you that I will do everything I can to prevent the human trafficking, to go after those that would try and induce our children into drugs and prevent them from being victims of sexual predators. I know how to do the job. I ran for 3 years. Our 700 federal inmates were under our responsibility with the Marshal's office. Identical responsibilities with the Sheriff's office. I was the one that was personally in charge of all the aspects of those individuals. I know how to run a jail. I encourage you to look at my Facebook. What you're going to see, if you look at both my personal and my campaign, I never did Facebook until the start of this campaign 2 months ago. Had to have my sons help me out. So my 2 Facebook posts, people have made comments on both sides. If you look at them, what you're going to see is individuals that I've worked for, individuals that have worked for me, individuals that I've worked with, people that I've arrested, people that I've helped once they got out of jail. I'm concerned about everybody, even those that have been in custody, and once they come out. I want to see people succeed. I care about people. My job is to protect you, your family, and your property. I will do that. I'm a constitutional sheriff. I will protect your constitutional rights. And I ask for your vote. And thank you, Jim Phelps.
We also have Carlton Bowen, who's running for the House District 57 representative position.
Thank you. I'm so pleased to be here with you today, and I'm glad that a group like this exists. I'm Carlton Bowen. I'm running for Utah House 57. That district comprises mostly Pleasant Grove, a little bit of American Fork. I just want to hit 3 things in my few minutes here. First of all, the U.S. Constitution. I believe in the U.S. Constitution. I believe that it's divinely inspired. I'm very thankful for it. I think that the key to understanding the Constitution is understanding the underlying theory and philosophy behind it, or underneath it, which is basically governments in the past before the Constitution. The idea was that, the king had all power, the government had all power. And you could just maybe carve out a little bit here and there for the people. And the Constitution turned that totally upside down and went from the premise that we, the people, have all power. And we're going to create a government. And we're going to say what power that government has by specifically listing, okay, we give you the authority to do this and to do this and to do this. And if we didn't give you the authority to do it, you don't have the authority. And as Mr. Herrod mentioned, that enumeration in the U.S. Constitution of what the states empowered the federal government to do is largely found in Article 1, Section 8. That gets to the next thing, which is we have self-government, which is wonderful, and we have representative government. And that's the caucus system. I love the caucus system. It's representative. So our neighbors come together and they elect people, and then those people go and they do the homework. Much like in the legislature, as voters we elect a legislator, and then we expect that person to go and do their homework, to be informed about what the issues are, and then to make the best decision based on the information they've gathered, based on their principles, based on their wisdom. And the caucus system is really that same thing. Juries are that same thing. I love that we have juries. Do you know that a jury, when it's empowered, it's representing you, it's representing we the people. And it's the jury that determines the law and how the law applies. And so I'm really thankful that we have a jury system. But I'm thankful for this caucus system, and I think what we miss is we go about trying to, the caucus system clearly has been watered down with SB 54. And one of the things that I'd like to point out is just how that has been watered down, that maybe sometimes we don't elucidate as much as we should. So I've been involved in the caucus system in the parties for a long time, the Republican Party in particular, here in Utah. Tried to get involved in Virginia when I was in the military, but they said that won't fly. You're in the military. There's a rule against that. I grew up here in Utah and was out there for my service. But the caucus, the Republican Party for so many years has tried to make it so that when you come out of caucus, there's only 2 candidates. And they played around with that threshold, whether it's 65%, 70%, 60%, And the reason that they did that was because they wanted a way that if the caucus didn't have a clear decision of this is our choice, that yes, there would be a primary. But they didn't want there to be more than two because they wanted whoever won in the primary to be a majority candidate. And what SB 54 has done is it has totally undone that and has made it so that we can now have minority candidates as the nominee. In other words, let's say you have three candidates, two good guys and maybe a less than good guy or bad guy. And you know, and so the two good guys, they split each other's vote, but that's who the majority of voters, you know, supported. Let's say 60% of the voters supported the two good guys, 30% went for A and 30% went for B. And then you have, you know, a minority, 40% that went for candidate C, the bad guy, but the bad guy wins. It totally undermines what the party has been trying to do with who their nominee is. It totally undermines the actual nominee themselves as far as, you know, whether they're representative of the majority of beliefs, of values, of opinions of the people. I know that it's a little bit preaching to the choir with a group like this because I assume you all support the caucus system and probably understand it quite well and support the Constitution, but I just want you to know that these are things that are important to me. I believe in constitutional carry. I'd like to see that get passed. I have other things too. State lands issue are really important to me. We've had that battle going on. We need to continue that battle. The Utah Enabling Act gave Utah jurisdiction over our lands, even our federally owned lands, specifically gave us jurisdiction, and it kind of mandated the federal government to divest itself of those lands, which it has not done. It owns over 60% of Utah. Thank you.
Has anyone filled out any cards for questions? If not, if not, raise your hand, we'll call on you, and the candidates can address your question. Do you have a question, Judy?
Yes, for Jim Phelps.
Will you stand up?
Oh.
So we can
As sheriff, how does it work? If the IRS or the federal government comes in and starts harassing us, you can prevent that, right?
I can. I will stand up to the constable. Thank you. And I appreciate the mic. I've been having to holler all week, so I lose my voice real fast. So I appreciate the question as far as whether a sheriff will stand up for your constitutional rights against other agencies. And I actually say I love this question because I can honestly say I'm the only candidate out there that has actually stood up to another federal agency. And I'll give you a perfect example. BLM. I was furious at the treatment that the BLM did down in southern Utah and Moab. They went in and they hired a undercover officer, informants, to go in and purchase artifacts down there. And I don't know if you recall this situation. They built their investigation, and then all they had to have done was issue summonses. They could have served a summons in mail. You can mail a summons. Okay, they didn't do that. In the middle of the night, they took SWAT teams down and hit these homes. It was so egregious that a gentleman that was a physician had never been arrested. He was still traumatized by being a victim of their brutality. He killed himself.